Welcome back to yet another exciting week for long-term visionary investors and another terrifying week for panic selling short-term emotional traders, right? So let's dive through what is going on, starting with price action. URNM, Sprott Uranium Miners ETF year to date down 3%. The S&P 500 up 1%, but also declining last week. Still closely correlated with the broader market, but obviously coming down, right? And in order to understand why this isn't surprising to anyone who understands the macro environment, let's dive through the macro environment and what is actually going on. So the Federal Reserve is hiking interest rates, right? And whenever that happens, the US economy falls apart. This is a chart of the 2-year Treasury yield. Right now, breaching 5%. Look at the last time this happened was right before the great financial crisis of 2008, when the entire financial banking system fell apart, right? 2007, the market couldn't handle it and everything fell apart. Well, we're just starting to see cracks in the financial system. And so markets fell, right? Growth assets like uranium miners, like anything tied to the revolution of nuclear energy, that's all falling, right? Makes total sense to think that these assets are immune from the broader macro environment. Makes no sense, because no assets are immune from the broader macro environment, including gold or silver. So this is where we are. Understand that the market is completely and utterly centrally planned and manipulated. So just look at every time the rates go up, what happens? They come down, right? Because the markets fall apart. The Federal Reserve steps in and cleans up the mess they created, and the centrally planned, manipulated economy just cycles on, right? And the currency gets debased, high quality assets go up. So with that said, this is kind of the backdrop we are in. It's a terrible macro environment, but it doesn't mean the long-term fundamentals of these assets are changing. So let's dive through the news. What is going on in this space? Well, to summarize, the uranium market gathers momentum towards a supply shortfall. Uranium production is on the rise, but a gap remains. Production is expected to continue to rise by 8% this year to 143 million pounds from 133 million pounds. However, that will fall short of expected demand of 181 million pounds, despite planned restarts of several projects, including Peninsula Energy. So we have a supply demand deficit. We've had one for years at this point. There's only so much above ground uranium that can be eaten into. And so that's why we did see that massive run up in the spot price. And so obviously miners are taking advantage of this upswing in prices, and they're going to continue to do that because production this year will not meet the demand, and it's not expected to meet the demand. That's what we've been covering. Deficits will persist, but might shrink in the 2024 to 2025 period, after which uranium supply deficits are expected to increase, with a cumulative production gap of roughly 345 million pounds anticipated by 2030. So this is a long-term structural supply deficit, and anyone with exposure to this scarce resource is expected to benefit, right? So let's figure out how the supply-demand fundamentals are changing for this asset. From the White House's just released 2024 budget, a section on supporting domestic uranium production and reducing reliance on foreign supplies. In addition, the administration supports the use of the Defense Production Act to support rebuilding domestic uranium production and enrichment capacity to establish a secure supply for the nation's current and future nuclear fleet, and also to reduce reliance on foreign supplies of uranium. So we have the most powerful organization in the world, the federal government, buying up domestic uranium, right? Putting a floor on the price of uranium, paying more than spot price, paying a premium to miners to get as much as possible out of the ground, all in the midst of a supply crunch. A new nuclear reactor in the US starts up. It's the first in nearly 7 years. On Monday, Georgia Power announced that the Vogtle Nuclear Reactor Unit 3 has started a nuclear reaction inside the nuclear reactor. So times are changing, right? Obviously, it's a whole new world to where we were back when the uranium spot price was $30. You have massive investment in the space. Vistra deepens nuclear push with $3.4 billion deal for Energy Harbor. U.S. energy company Vistra said on Monday it would buy Energy Harbor in $3 billion deal, including debt, looking to expand its nuclear power generation capacity. We've been covering these deals, right? Billions of dollars pouring into the space from private companies. The UK poised to redefine atomic power as green and bid to pull in private investment. Move comes as government is set to provide £80 million in seed funding for launch of Great British Nuclear. So we have the UK government, another very wealthy country, diving in. Constellation begins clean hydrogen production at 9 Mile Point Nuclear Power Station. New York demonstration project will set stage for potential large-scale deployment. EDF, a massive company, Edison, Ansaldo Energia, and Ansaldo Nuclear have signed a letter of intent for new nuclear development. The aim of the cooperation is to leverage the specific expertise of the four signatories and assess potential industrial cooperation for the development of nuclear power in Europe, specifically in the field of small modular reactors. So just another catalyst for the space, small modular reactor technology in the very early stages, in the infancy, but about to roll out. EDF to extend Heysham 1 and Hartlepool for 2 extra years. Nuclear operator EDF has announced that it is to keep the Heysham 1 and Hartlepool nuclear power units operating until 2026. 2 years longer than previously planned. Again, there's a massive gap, right, between demand and supply. Well, the demand curve every single week just continues to accelerate up, and supply is not meeting that, right? So the deficit just widens with every one of these stories about plants operating longer than previously planned. First, Belgium couldn't live with them. Now they can't live without them. So the government has formally asked Engel to upgrade and extend their nuclear reactors without stopping them in 25 to 27. Same story. And here's an exciting piece of news from UEC, Uranium Energy Corp. Uranium Energy, a domestic North American producer. Uranium Energy Corp intersects 15.94% uranium over 7 meters and extends the Secura zone at the Christie Lake project in eastern Athabasca Basin, Canada. So they just found some uranium. So just an update for those of you who want to stay on top of understanding where this space is and who can look past the market manipulations and the short-term fluctuation.